Hi everyone, myself Dr. M. Lakshmi Prasad, working as an associate professor in the Department of Data Science Engineering in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about designing charts. So in previous video, I discussed different types of charts like bar chart, line chart and all, and then pictogram like this, right? So in this video, by taking an application how we're going to draw these charts and all, I will discuss in this video. So before going to draw charts, we have to know what are the different types of data first. We have to be understand, right? So before visualization, so the data is very important. Since the data is going to come from different sources, what we have to do? We have to be organize the data, and what type of data it is we have to be understand. Okay, so for that we have to know the data types first. So for the data types, so the data types are going to be classified into different categories. So very first one is that quantitative data type, and then discrete data type, and then continuous data type, and categorical data type. Okay, so what is the quantitative data type? So the quantitative data type is nothing but the data which can be counted or measured. Okay, so here all the values should be in the form of numerals. And discrete data type. So discrete data type means here the data will be in the form of a numerical way, which should be a collection of finite number of possible values. And suppose the example is that number of employees in the office. And then continuous data type. So continuous data means so where the data is going to be measured that has a value within a range. Suppose the range is going to be specified. Suppose example is the rainfall in a year. So that should be a continuous data type. And next thing is that a categorical data type. So the categorical data type is nothing but the data which can be sorted according to the group or category. So that should be considered as a categorical data type. So example is the type of product sold like this. Right, so the data types are going to be classified into different categories. So very first one is that quantitative data types, and the second one is the discrete data type, and third one is that continuous data type and categorical data types. So the quantitative data types means the data that can be counted or measured, right? So that should be treated as a quantitative data type. So here all the values should be in numerical form. And second one is that discrete data type. So discrete data type means all the numerical data so should have a finite number of possible values. Example, number of employees in the office like this. And continuous data type. So the continuous means where the data is going to be measured and have a value within the range. So example, rainfall in a year. And then categorical data. So the categorical data means where the data can be sorted according to the group or category. So example, the types of products sold. So that should be the categorical data, right? So before going to design this charts, you have to know what is your data, whether the data comes under discrete or it maybe comes under categorical or it comes under quantitative or continuous. You have to be understood. So next we have to see about the data relationships. So the data relationships means what type of relations we can have to be maintained between the one data to the other kind of data. Okay, so first one is that nominal comparison. So what is nominal comparison? So this is the simple comparison of the quantitative values of the subcategories. So example is that number of visitors to our various sites. So that is nominal comparison. So how many number of visitors are coming, are visiting our site, so should be nominal comparison. And next one is the time series. So the time series means where the track changes in the values of a consistent metric over time. So example, monthly sales. Okay, so the track is going to be changed in the values of consistent metric over the time. That should be the time series data. And correlation. So what should be the correlation? So the correlation is that the data which is with two or more variables that may be demonstrated a positive or negative correlation to each other. So example is that the salaries according to the educational level. So that should be correlations. Okay, so if I'm going to take more than one variable, so definitely the correlation may exist that may be able to demonstrate the positive and negative correlations to each other. And the next one is the ranking. So ranking means which can able to show the two or more positive values that should be compared with each other in the in relative magnitude. So that should be the ranking. Example, historic weather patterns, or rank from the hottest months to the coldest, like this. And next one is the deviation. So the deviation means we should be able to explain how the data points to relate to one another, and particularly show how far any kind of data point differ from the mean. So example, so amusement park tickets and sold on rainy days or a regular day. So that kind of comparison I have to make. So the number of tickets that sold in summer season and rainy season, how it will be, I want to deviate it. So that should be the deviation have to be understood. And next one is the distribution. So the distribution able to shows the data distribution and then often around the central value. So example, heights of players on the basketball team, right? And then which can able to shows the data distribution around the certain value. So example is the height of players. The height of players should be compulsory. So without the players of specific height, it is possible to make the basketball team. And next one is that the part to whole relationship. So it should able to show a subset of data compared to the larger whole. Okay. And example, the percentage of customers purchasing specific products. So right, so the data relationships is that we have to be understood what should be the nominal comparison, and then time series, and then correlation, ranking, deviation, distribution, and part to whole relationships. Okay, so the nominal comparison means it should be a simple comparison for quantitative values. Example, number of visitors to various websites. And time series is that the track changes in values to a consistent metric over the time. So that should be monthly sales. And correlation is that the data with two or more variables that may be able to demonstrate positive or negative correlation each other. And ranking is that it can able to show two or more values compared to each other in relative magnitude. So that should be historic weather conditions, patterns and all. And then deviation is that this examines how the data points relate to one another, and particularly how far for any given data point type differ from the mean. And then distribution. So distribution means shows the data distribution often around a central value. And then part to whole relationships. So this shows able to show the subset of data compared to the larger whole, like this. Then guide to chart types. So we are having the bar chart, pie chart, line chart, area chart, scatter plot, bubble chart, and heat map. So these are the some of the different type of charts what we're having. So it comes to first one is the bar chart. So bar charts are very versatile, and they are best to use to show the change over the time and compare different categories or compare different parts of the whole. Okay, so these are the bar charts. So the bar charts are very versatile, and they are the best offer used to change over time and then compare the different categories and to compare the different parts of whole. So the variations of bar charts will be of different types. So first one, a vertical bar chart, and then a horizontal bar chart. So the vertical bar chart are able to specify the column chart. So it may be you best used for the chronological data. So the time series should always run to left to right, and when visualization negative values below the x-axis. Whereas from this horizontal bar chart, so it may be best used for the data with long categorical labels. Okay, so these are the different types of bar charts we're having. And then so within the bar chart there may be some different types also, like stacked bar chart and then 100% stacked bar chart. So what is the stacked bar chart? So within the stacked bar chart, so the bar is going to be divided into different categories of different percentages. So let's 60, 30, 20, 10, 20% like this. and this one is going to be divided in different categories. So the orange color is yellow color is going to be indicate email marketing and organic search and paid search like this. So this should be one of the stacked bar charts. So normally it is best used when we are going to compare multiple part to whole relationships, and this can be a discrete one or it may be a continuous one that may be either can able to represent in horizontally and then vertically. So next one is that 100% stacked. What is meant by 100% stacked? So the bar is going to be divided into 100%. So each and every word is should be 100%. So within that we have to divide the category of that each bar. So suppose educational information, entertainment, and uh, thought leaders like this. Suppose this should be 60 and 30 and 10. So the sum of this all the values should be equal to 100. So that's why this one will be called as 100%. So each and every bar chart should be 100%, which is going to be divided into different categories. So that should be 100% stacked bar chart. So designing best practices for the bar chart. So use horizontal labels. Okay. So avoid steep diagonal or vertical type. It may be difficult to read. So all the time. So what you have to do? Always, all the time, use horizontal tab labels. Okay. Don't use this even though it is correct. Okay. The labeling is different in vertical. So that's why it is rejected. So some part is clear, but the labeling should be correct. Okay, so that all the time you use horizontal labels only. So avoid steep diagonal or vertical type as it is difficult to read. Space bars appropriately. Space bars appropriately means the space between the bars should be half bar. Half bar width have to be maintained. So it is one and this should looks like 1.5. We should not. That's why it is not suitable. So maintain all the time. Maintain half-inch distance between one bar to the another bar, and start the y-axis value at 0. So what are the bar chart I'm drawing? So that should be start with 0. If I'm going to start from 50, 51 like this, something else, so the type of chart is not suitable, and this one should be the constraint. So start the y-axis value at 0. So start the value above 0, truncate the bars and does not actually reflect the full value. Next, so use consistent colors, okay, to highlight the significance of data type. Suppose if I am going to mention this is the application, for one application I am going to draw the bar chart. If I am going to use of different colors, it is going to mean that this is one of that value and this is another value and this is another value, like this is going to be treated sometimes, but I'm going to draw the bar chart for a single variable only, how it is. So that's why all the time maintain the consistent colors only. And next one is that order data appropriately. So these categories are going, all the categories are going to be alphabetically or sequentially how to maintain. And so here what will happen in this bar chart, the name is going to be start bananas, apples, and then oranges are there. So whatever the data we are representing, that should be represented in the form of alphabetical, right? Apples after A, B, and O, like this. This should be constant. So these are the some of the design practices we have to be learned before going to draw the bar chart. Okay, so very first one is that first use the horizontal labels instead of vertical labels, and then the space, maintain the space, equal space between the two bars, and then start the y value axis at 0 and use the consistent colors, and then order the data separately. Next one is that pie chart. So the pie chart is going to be used best for making a part to whole comparisons with the discrete and continuous data. So they are most impactful with small data set. So some of the variations of this pie chart will be standard pie chart and donut pie chart. So this standard pie chart is going to show the part to whole relationships, and donut is going to be stylish variation, so which can enable the inclusion of total value or design element in the center. Right, so these are the two types of bar chart. So the bar chart is mainly particularly used for making a part to whole comparisons. So that one may be either discrete I can able to go for, or I can able to go for the continuous also. So they are more impactful to the small data sets. So how this pie chart looks like, so how to draw a circle, and then based on this protractor we have to make the angles, and then percentages how to mention. And donut pie chart, it should be one of the stylish type of this pie chart which enable the inclusion of total value or the design element in that. So the pie chart is one of the most popular data type charts. So however, this visualization makes the uh, application to be make into different slices. So if they are going to nominally, they are going to use the familiar percentages like 25%, 50, 75, 100%. Some common angles they are going to maintain. So if you are going to interrupt these angles inconsistently, making it difficult to relate to sizes, and then for the less effective is going to maintain. So what are some of the design practices we have to be considered while designing the bar charts here? So the first one is that, so visualize no more than 5 categories per chart. Okay, if I'm going to draw a pie chart, so don't maintain a number of sectors in this pie chart. Okay, try to maintain only 5. Then it looks good for the application for presenting the data. So why? Because it is difficult to differentiate between the small values, and then depicting too many slices are required to decrease the impact of visualization. And if needed, you can able to group the similar values into other or miscellaneous category also. And don't use multiple pie charts for comparison. Okay. So the slices are going to be difficult to compare and side by side, and that's why use a stacked bar chart instead. Okay, so if I'm going to represent this kind of applications, so then it is better to use stacked bar chart instead of pie chart. And next one is that make sure that all the data adds up to 100% or not have to be identified, because so what is that sectors we are dividing now, so that should be equal to 100%, the sum should be equal to 100%, then only it should be acceptable, otherwise it should not be acceptable. Okay, so treat this value, so for 10, 35, 45, 45 plus 30, 75, 90 plus 10, how much? 100. So that should be equal to 100, so it matches. So it is how much it is, 35, 45 and 50 and then 65, so it is not acceptable. And next one, order slices correctly. Okay, order the slices correctly. So there are two ways in this section, so both which are meant for either comprehension. So option 1, place the largest section at 12 o'clock, go clockwise, and otherwise they place the second largest section going to counterclockwise, and remaining sections can be placed below continuing the counterclockwise. Okay, so we should not be one should be the first position, and this should be the second and the third, fourth and fifth. We should not go like anti-clockwise. So all the time we have to move from anti-clockwise, clockwise direction only. So placing first, second biggest, third biggest, fourth biggest and fifth biggest. So all this time we have to start with the counterclockwise direction, but we have to be go for the biggest to the smaller values. And second one is that start the largest section at the clock and going on clockwise. So this one should also be acceptable. Placing 1 to second biggest one, what is the biggest one, second biggest, third biggest and fourth biggest. Okay, sorry, this one should be anti-clockwise, and this should be clockwise. This one is anti-clockwise and this should be clockwise. So both are considered, but all the time we have to be placed from biggest to the smaller value. And next one is that line chart. So the line chart are going to use to shows the time series relationship with the continuous data, and this may be helpful to show the trend, acceleration, declaration, and volatility. Okay, so like this I have to maintain this line chart. So direct marketing used by date. So all the time this line chart is going to be used only for the continuous data, not for the discrete data. Okay, so then what are the best design practices what you have to be do for the line chart? So by drawing this line chart, we have to be include zero in the baseline if possible. So what is this zero? That it should be start from zero only. So here it is 5, so this should not be acceptable. Okay, so include a zero in baseline if I am going to draw the pie chart. So although the line chart does not have a start at the zero baseline, so what will happen, it should be included if possible. Relatively small functions in the data is going to be meaningful. So example in stock market data. And then next one is that don't plot more than 4 lines. Okay, so if I'm going to draw the line chart like of multiple lines like this, so what will happen, it should not be understandable properly. So what you have to do all the time, you should have to draw the line charts more than 4 is not acceptable. So don't plot more than 4 lines. So to show that what will happen, the display should be appear clumsy and it is not to make the better comparison. Use solid lines only. So if I'm going to draw the line chart, so all the time you have to follow this solid line. So it should not be follow this dotted lines, different types of dotted lines. And then label the lines directly. So what will happen? So if I'm going to draw one line, so what is this line meant for? So apples. And what is this line meant for? Oranges. And what is this line meant for? Bananas. If I'm going to mention, then to clearly understand what is this line meant for. If I'm going to draw like this, or yellow is orange, and then bananas blue, and apple red like this, what will happen? Should be unable to visualize, and then unable to predict what is this line meant for. And use the right height. So plot all the data lines so that the line chart takes up approximately 2/3 of the y-axis total scale. Okay, the 2/3 of the lines should be acceptable. So if I'm going to draw the line chart, so if it is of in this way, so it is unable to predict. So use the right height. So how the right height will appear by changing the values of that. And next one is that area chart. So what is the area chart? So these are some of the different variations of area chart. So area chart able to depict this time series relationship, but they are different. That line chart in that can able to represent the volume. Okay, if I want to show the volume size of charts, then you have to go for the area charts. So area charts is the one which is best to show how to make compare a quantitative progression over the time. Okay, so that should be area chart. Again another kind of stacked area chart. So it is better for visualization part to whole relationship. Same thing, helping to show how each category contributes cumulative total. So how much area. So by seeing this graph, I can able to understand how much of area this application is occupying. This variable is occupying. So social media and the referrals and the should be organic section. So which part is going to be occupied? So the difference is going to be more occupied. So next one is that 100% stacked area. So that it should be almost all equal to a rectangle. So 100% is going to maintain. So which can able to represent the area view. So previously what I shown should be a bar view. 100% stack, right? So in the same fashion, how the area point of view, that should be matches to 100%. So that should be 100% stack. So next, what are the design practices we have to be considered for the area chart? Okay, so for this, what we have to do, so we have to be make it easy to read. So the design chart, okay, in stacked area chart, what you have to do is, so arrange the data to be position category with higher variable data on top and of the chart and lower variable on the bottom. So if, so what is the area I'm going show, right? So that one should be shown in bottom. So right, so make it easy to read. So what will happen, so in stacked area chart, the data arrangement is going to be an important thing, so to represent the higher variable data on the top. So okay, what is the data that is occupying high, that should be top, and next level should be next area, and next should be the next. So the 1 2 3 like this. So we should not represent like this in this form of, so all the time you have to be shown the higher occupied data should be on the top and lower occupied data should be on the bottom. Start y-axis at 0, same thing, the same design what we have following previous charts. So here also we have to be start with 0 and it should not be start with some other values. And next one is that don't display more than 4 data categories. So similarly, if I'm going to draw the area chart, so all the time I have to be considered only some 4, maximum 4. So if I'm going to take more than that of area chart, then it should not be clearly predictable, and it looks clumsy also like this. So it too many will able to result the cluttered visual that is difficult to decide. And next one is that use the transparent colors only. So the visual colors we're going to be used while drawing this area. We should not be throw very light colors for this area charts. And don't use this area charts to display the discrete data. So don't use this area chart to display the discrete data. So all the time you have to be follow only for discrete data. And next one is the scatter plot. So scatter plot is the one which can able to show the relationship between the items based on two set of variables, and these are the best to show the correlation in large amount of data, right? So suppose I want to show the revenue by product family, so the family of, right, so the units sold and then revenue in millions. So I want to draw the scatter plot, so just plots I have to mention it. So blue color is family 1, orange is family 2, and little bit dark will be family 3, and full orange should be family 4. So the scatter plot is going to be show that kind of relationship between that items among the set of variables. And what are kind of design practices we have to be follow for this scatter plot. So the scatter plot usually should be start with 0, so normal thing, and it should also be include more variables. Use the trend lines and then don't compare more than 2 trend lines. So these are some of the design practices you had to be follow for designing the scatter plot. So while drawing the scatter plot also the value should be start with 0 and then include more variables. So use size and dot color to encode the additional data information. So make the dots will be of different sizes. Also, I can able to show so that more than one variable is appearing to encode the additional data values. And use the trend lines. So once I draw the family of family 1, join the lines how it comes, and dot line how it comes like this. Okay. So that thing I have to maintain, use the trend lines to make the correlation between the variables, and don't compare more than 2 trend lines. So these are under design practice. And next one is the bubble chart. So this bubble chart is going to be used or good for displaying nominal comparisons or ranking relationships. Okay, so the bubble charts are good for displaying nominal comparisons or ranking relationships. So some of the variations of these bubble charts will be bubble plot and bubble map. Okay, the bubble plot almost all similar to the scatter plot but with bubbles, but best used to display the additional data variable. So the scatter plot also looks same, and then bubble chart also looks same. But if I'm going to show this bubble chart only for displaying uh, large sized bubbles, if I want to show the scatter plot means which look like a dot, but here there is not that much. If I want to represent more category, no more variables in that scatter plot. So instead of representing this scatter plot, then I have to go for the bubble chart. So what is, suppose application has more than number of variables. If I want to show this more variables in a single dot of different color, it is not good. So what will happen? I can able to represent in the form of bubble so that the different variables are lying in this application. And bubble map is the another thing which can able to use for visualization values for specific geographical regions. Suppose in COVID times, what will happen where that COVID cases are increasing. If I want to show the whole wide, so what how to have to go for the bubble map. So the bubble map is going that this is going to indicate that this COVID cases are increasing in this area, and by seeing this very less number of bubble cases are appearing, COVID cases are appearing. By seeing this bubble, I can able to understand the more cases are lying in this area. Like this, I can able to understand. And then, so what kind of design practices we have to be considered for this bubble chart? So make sure that labels are visible. So very first thing is that all the labels should be uh, represented clearly and then easily identified. And then size bubbles approximately. So not too much size of bubbles have to be represented. So maximum 1% or 2 increase size. So should not go for 3 or 3x or 4x and all. So the bubbles should be scaled according to the area, not the diameter. And don't use odd shapes. So all the time don't use the bubbles of circle form. Don't use some other symbols like dollar symbol or some other symbols in that bubble chart. And next one is that heat map. So heat map is another kind of designing chart where you can able to display the categorical data using intensity of the color of represents a value of geographical areas and or data tables. Okay, suppose I want to know how much of oil refineries are available in particular state I want to show, then at the time I have to make use of this heat map. So heat map is going to be show the intensity of the colors represents the value of geographic area. So very light yellow, so very less petroleum is available here, and a light next color orange is going to be show that a little bit more petrol. Suppose it should be 30% of petroleum is available, 70% of petrol is available, and very dark orange shows represent some 100% of petroleum is available here. So that kind of maps I want to show, then I have to make use of this heat maps. So heat maps all the time display the categorical data, and based on the intensity of the color we have to represent the geographic areas and data tables. And what kind of design practices we have to be considered for the heat map? So for this heat map, what you have to do is so use a simple map outline. Okay, so don't do like this. So what I'm showing the PPT. So what is single line? Don't use some dark or bold lines between the areas of that cities and all. So use simple map outline and from to frame the data, not the district, and select colors approximately. So if I'm going to use a single color of different intensity, that it looks good instead of taking different colors. Okay, and next then use pattern separately. Okay, so the pattern overlay indicates that second variables is acceptable, but using multiple is overlapping and then discarding. And choose appropriate data ranges. So all the time use 3 to 5 numerical ranges only. Don't use more than that of values. So that what will happen if you are going to choose this appropriate data ranges, what will happen? The distribution of data should be good to indicate the higher and then lower range of values. Okay, so for designing the heat map, so use a single map outline and then select the colors approximately, and then use the patterns of different type and choose appropriate data ranges. So the 10 data do's and don'ts I will show. So very first thing that before going to designing the chart, so what you have to do is you have to be, don't use one color to represent each category, and do order data sets using logical hierarchy, and use call layouts to highlight the important or interesting information, and do visualize the data in a way that it is easy for the readers and compare values, and do I use icons to enhance the comprehension and reduce the unnecessary labeling. Okay, so these are the some of the compulsory actions that have to be made in the design. So you don't use only one color, and do only order set with local hierarchy maintained, and do use callouts and then highlight the information or interesting information, and then visualize the data in a way that is easy for the readers and compare values, and then to make the comprehension reduce unnecessary labeling. So don't use high contrast colors combinations, right, such as red, green, and then blue and yellow. Don't use that, and don't use 3D charts, so which can they can able to skew perception of the visualization. And don't add chart junk, unnecessary illusions, and then drop shadows and then ornamentations and discrete from the data. And don't use more than 6 colors in the single layout, and don't use distracting fonts or elements such as bold, italic, underline, and text. Okay, so these are the some of the do and don'ts while making the data design. So don't use high contrast color combination, and don't use 3D charts, and don't use chart junk, and don't use more than 6 colors, and don't use discrete of elements. Okay, so these are the some of the do's and don'ts we have all for data design. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.